Welcome to Wisconsin in Focus. I'm Benjamin Yant, Wisconsin correspondent, filling in for Bruce Walker. We're going to talk about reading today. Wisconsin has been plagued for years with falling standardized test scores and a growing gap between white and black students in the state's public schools. One of the biggest problems is that young men, young women, elementary school students even, are not reading or writing at grade level. The statistic is common, thrown around, and true that 2/3 of kids in Wisconsin's public schools cannot read, write, or do math at grade level. When you look early into elementary school, 4th grade, which is the sort of high water mark for when a child needs to be ready to read, the numbers are even worse. On this Thursday, the day that we're actually recording this podcast, Wisconsin Republicans pitched an overhaul of how reading will be taught in the state's public schools. The Republican supporters are calling it the Right to Read Act, and it would fundamentally change exactly how Wisconsin public school kids are taught to learn. State Senator Duey Stroebel said the numbers show why that's necessary.
Because right now, I think it's close to 70% of our 4th graders cannot read at grade level. And that is just totally unacceptable, because we see when students can't read at grade level at 4th grade, that is the building blocks and foundation of their education from there on. And we see that those kids who can't read at grade level have a much higher propensity for involvement in the criminal justice system and just generally success in life.
The specifics of this legislation revolve around a couple of different things, but mainly $50 million that would go to reteaching reading. And State Representative Joel Kitchens from up in the Sturgeon Bay area said it's not, first and foremost, it's not just about teaching the kids how to read better.
The first thing we have to do is we need to reteach our teachers, because our universities over the last couple of decades have not been teaching reading properly. And so we need to reteach them. So we will pay for the training for the teachers to learn how to teach reading properly, actually. And then we will be providing coaches that will be spread around the country. It's similar to what Mississippi did in theirs. And Mississippi is sort of the poster child in having gone from dead last historically in reading in the country to now being essentially tied with us.
Anytime you hear anyone in education praising something in Mississippi, you know things have changed. Mississippi, for most of my life as a reporter, has been one of the worst states when it comes to almost every single measurement. But Mississippi did go on and perform what's being called in educational circles the Mississippi Miracle by returning to phonics and the science of reading to better teach young people how to read. In addition to reteaching the teachers, this legislation would bring in coaches. There would also be screenings for kindergartners through 4th graders, young kids first starting out. And if a child is behind in reading in kindergarten or 1st grade or 3rd grade or certainly 4th grade, the legislation would pull those children aside and get them more reading, help get them up to speed. This is something that has been in the works for years. Last year, the Republicans who control the Wisconsin legislature approved a similar plan. Governor Evers vetoed it. He didn't like the fact that there wasn't any money involved. He also didn't like some of the specifics. This year, the Republicans thought they were on board, ready to go forward. But shortly after they made their announcement, the state's Department of Public Instruction made its announcement. The quote from the superintendent of schools: "We are supportive of a literacy bill, but this version of the bill includes a retention policy and requirement, and that is a non-starter for us because as drafted, it is harmful to our learners, families, and communities." That's from State Superintendent of Schools Jill Underly. Retention is the broad term for holding children back and holding students and teachers accountable. State Rep John Jagler said he hopes that they can find some common ground going forward.
What we're requiring is that districts come up with a policy in the next 2 years, and then it doesn't take effect until 5 years from now. And there's some, DPI will come up with a model policy for it that'll have a few minimal things that have to be in it, and then the school districts can come up with their own policy, is the way that it's written. And I was going to say, there will be a lot of interventions, we don't want to hold kids back, right? If we're catching them early and starting them on the path, and then when they get to that grade, they'll have several opportunities to take the test. What Mississippi does is, if they still have failed it after like 4 tries through that summer, they have an intensive program to get them back on track, and they're able to get most of them back, and they don't have to hold them back, because that's the last resort.
Jagler said that Governor Evers had Republican lawmakers negotiating with DPI, and they were under the assumption that as long as DPI was good with the plan, then Governor Evers would be good with the plan as well. But we learned today that DPI isn't good with this plan. So it's one more piece of the grand bargain at the Capitol that remains in limbo. Now, this is going to be fast-tracked. We are here on the 8th of June. Wisconsin must have a new state budget by July 4th, and there's still a lot of work to get done to get to that point. So this is a plan that will likely come up for a vote in the coming days. Once that vote happens, we'll see how many Democrats have signed on and how many Republicans have signed on. And maybe, just maybe, we can get a gauge of where Governor Evers will eventually land on this. Like we say so many times here on Wisconsin in Focus, stay tuned. This is why we write the stories every single day. You can keep up with this story and all of the others that we write every single day over at thecentersquare.com. I'm Benjamin Yant, in for Bruce Walker. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening.